Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello, welcome to my show. I am so excited, as always, for today's show because we're going to be talking about things that everybody thinks about, no matter who you are, and no matter how much you believe or have faith-based notions about what happens after you die. There's still those unanswered questions that we all have. And even if we feel like we're okay with death, there's still a part of us that might be scared. I know that I've worked with people for over 4 decades dealing with fears and beliefs and all of that. But it always seems to come down to that core belief that what's going to happen when I die? I've shared this story. I might have shared it on one of my shows, but I have to share that when I was 4 years old, I started young, I was standing in the living room washing my mom's window, and all of a sudden it was like a lightning bolt that hit me and it said, "Oh my God, you're going to die. Everybody's going to die. Your mother's going to die. Everybody's going to die." And it freaked out. I completely freaked out. And I ran into the kitchen and I said, Mom, what happens when you die? And she looked at me like, oh my God, this is a 4-year-old child. What do I tell her? And she couldn't answer. So she made up this little story about, well, nobody knows what happens when you die, but, you just have to remember people and that's all you can do. And I knew she was making something up. I knew that wasn't the, the answer I was looking for. And it started me on my spiritual quest right then. It became my mission in life to find out what happens and why is life like this, etc. Those little questions. So reading about people and hearing about people that have near-death experiences helps answer some of those questions. And I think it's interesting that so many people are having those experiences, but there's still nagging thoughts about, are they really true? And is that going to happen to me? And maybe it's drug-induced and all those things. And what if their experiences are not like mine? And then you find out about someone like Kathy, my guest today, who had what she calls a distressing near-death experience. And she's going to talk about that. And she's also going to talk about some of the research that's being done about these they're not that unusual actually, but these different near-death experiences that are hellish. They're not the blissful meeting God and, all that stuff that you read about. So she questioned what happened to her, and it's taken her years to process through it and to understand it a little bit and to find out that a lot of other people have had that experience. And she's going to talk about all of that. So welcome, Kathy McDaniel. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Royce. I'm glad to be here. It's our 3rd attempt.
I know. I was thinking that too. I can't get enough of you. It's so fascinating to me. Like I said, it's been my life's journey to figure it all out.
Yeah, I think most of us have really thought about that. And probably since children, the first time a grandfather dies or something, yes, there's questions.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I've worked with people that I remember one woman in particular I was doing a retreat that was focused on death. The first time I did it, I called it the death retreat, but I didn't have many people sign up.
People are wondering, oh, all kinds of questions.
On a death retreat. But so I changed the name of it, and I called it, oh boy, the dog is going at it. So I changed the name of it. Gigi, hey, Gigi, come here. Has to get out of her system. She's a terrier. She's untrained.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They like.
But anyway, so I changed the name of it. I called it the Transitions Retreat, and I had a lot more people sign up. But one of the people that didn't want to go swore to me. She kept saying, "Oh, why would I want to go? I know what happens after I die, and I'm fine with it." And I'm, thou protesteth too loudly. But it ended up that she was just as terrified as everybody else. But anyway, enough of that. Tell us your story. I know that maybe you've told it a million times and maybe people have seen it, but I still think it's so fascinating. Tell us what happened.
Well, I'll start off with a little statistic. As far as we can determine, about 20% of people who have a near-death experience have some sort of distressing and hellish aspect to it, which is really a lot of people.
Yeah.
Millions of people that have had NDEs that are on the planet right now. And it's just that, we don't want to come forward after you hear about, the lovely puppies and rainbows and all of that stuff. And you kind of go, not in my experience. So you kind of, clam up. And then there's the family members and friends who say, well, what did you do to go to hell, Kathy? I mean, we thought you're such a good Catholic girl, and you go, I don't know. It was a very, it's distressing when you get back too. And for me, I thought, when I woke up out of the coma, I thought, oh my gosh, I went through my purgatory. I got out. I did get to heaven. I got thrown out. And now I'm going to come back on earth. I'm going to sin again. And I'm going to have to go through that all over again. That was so distressing. That was extra distressing. I thought, oh my gosh. So yeah, 25 years of trying to figure it out. It happened again. I was a good Catholic girl my whole life. My parents were very devoted and all Catholic schools all the way to college, and I really believed in my religion. I did the rosaries and the novenas and extra masses and good term. I was on good terms with God, right? And then one of the first things that's happened is that when I got married and I had for my first baby, she died 2 days after being born with these multiple horrible birth defect things. So for me, that was just kind of a shock that somebody who was that devoted and religious, God could do that to me. It was just awful to take my child like that. So that was the first time I ever had this sensation of breaking with God. And the thing was, well, if I do break from God, I won't get to heaven. And that's where my baby is. So I felt like that I was being blackmailed to stay in my religion. So, this started at the age of 20. And here I am, I'll be 79 next month. So I got to the age of 52. I had an interesting life. Very chaotic life. But I managed to hang on to my religion and believed in that. I still didn't like what might happen. But anyway, I had a good friend. We had been engaged for 7 years. We were best friends. He had moved to the East Coast. I didn't want to go, so I stayed here on the West Coast. But anyway, he came down with leukemia, called me up out of the blue and said he needed 2 caregivers. They were going to go to a research hospital in Seattle, and they needed 2 caregivers or they wouldn't let him into the program. So I said, sure. So I just packed up, came to Seattle, found us a little apartment just a block from the hospital. And he and his wife came up, new wife, and we started in. So it was supposed to be 2 to 3 months. So 8 to 9 months later, it's still going on. We are getting no sleep. He's better. He's worse. He's in the hospital. He's back in the apartment. It was just really so distressing. And he was still a very dear part of my life. So when he died, um, it was terrible. I was so run down, and I was so depressed, and I was um, went to this concert down in Southern California where they had this horrible raging flu that was very much akin to COVID, which I caught. And by the time I got back, I was really ill. I had been dating casually this young man that I'd met up here, and I called him in the middle of the night and I said, I'm really sick. I'm coughing up blood. I'm on the third floor of this apartment building with no elevator. I don't think I can get to my car. I'm afraid I'm dying. And so he got up in the middle of the night, drove over, helped me get down the stairs, drove me to this little local Dock in the Box, middle of the night. And by the time we got there, he started to slow down, and I felt like my life force was just like draining out, like when you're watching a battery go down. And I was trying to shout at him, I'm dying, I'm dying. And it only came out as a whisper. And so he slammed on the brakes, came around. As I was trying to get out of the car, I fell out and I blacked out. He picked me up and went running into this place and yelling, I need help, I need help. And there was no pulse. And so they called an ambulance. They got me going, threw me in the vehicle, and off we went to the local hospital. I don't remember any of that. I remember waking up in the bed, and I had an oxygen tent on and one of those cannulas that you put in your nose. And there's my family. Well, I'm in Seattle. They had come from California. My daughter had come from Colorado. And I was totally confused. And they said, well, you're one sick puppy, and they've been trying to throw everything at you. But what you've got is called ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome. It's lung failure, basically. And it's a syndrome, so it doesn't react to antibiotics. And what's happening is your lungs are filling up with fluid. And at some point, your body will decide to quit making the fluid, and it will recede, or else it will make so much that it solidify, and all your organs will shut down. Other than that, have a nice day. So I'm my family is they're freaking out. And I said, well, what are my options? And they said, well, what we'd like to do is put you into, a drug-induced coma, and then we're going to throw the book at you. We'll try everything we can, but basically it's just up to how strong you are and how strong your will to live is. And God knows, prayers, whatever you can throw in will be, so I'm 52. I'm saying goodbye to my family, and I'm thinking I've got no choice. So the last thing the doctor said to me is, we're going to give you something called white amnesia, and you're going to go out. You won't experience anything. Your consciousness, everything's turned off. Your brain's turned off. You're gone, and you'll wake up or you won't. And, okay, that's, what do you say, So we all agreed that was the only choice we had. And I said goodbye to everybody, and I was gone. And I woke up. but it was totally black, and it was quiet. And I didn't feel anything. I didn't hurt. I didn't know if I was sitting down or standing or what. I was afraid to move. So I thought, well, I'll just hang out. I mean, my sister and I used to play hide and seek, and we'd hide in a closet. That's what it felt like. I thought, well, I'm in a closet, and somebody's going to open the door and yell surprise any minute, and I'll just hang out. So I did. And then it started getting a little lighter, and I thought, good, I'll find out where in the heck I am. And as it got lighter, it was kind of a reddish glow. And I thought, okay, the sun's coming up. Maybe that's it. I'm waiting for the sunrise. And then it started getting warmer, and then a little warmer. And I thought, what's that about? And then I started smelling something that was not good. And then I started hearing these moans and then shrieking. And I thought, well, wow, this can't be good. And then it got lighter and lighter. And then there's this like reddish fog is swirling all around me, and I can't see through it. And I'm just hearing all these noises and stuff. And I thought, and I was just panicking because I thought, I don't know where I am. I can't move. And then all of a sudden, out of this fog came this horrible maniacal voice that says, do you know where you are?
Oh, God.
And I thought for a second, and I thought I can only come up with one answer. And I just said, hell. And the thing went boo with this horrible voice. And man, I was so freaked. I just turned and ran into the darkness. I just had to get away from that thing. And I didn't know if I was going to fall or if I was going to hit a wall or what, but I just kept trucking. And finally I stopped, and it was like somebody put a spotlight on me. You know, I was kind of blinded by this light. And then this like scene unfolded around me, and I'm in this huge city with big tall buildings and skyscrapers, but there's been like an atomic bomb or something went off because buildings have fallen down, the windows are blown out, there's huge chunks of concrete everywhere, rebar sticking out of them, and smoke and people screaming, and I can see the shadows, people running all over the place. Well, you know, I'm going from 0 to 60 here, and I'm panicked, and I'm thinking, I don't know what's going on. How would I get here? But I knew that being out in the open like this was probably not a good idea. So I'm looking around for a place to hide, and I see kind of this part break in some concrete, and I tuck down in there. My heart's racing, and you never know you're dead. I think if that's the one thing people don't understand is that our bodies are like a car. It's our souls who we are. Our spirit is us. So when you get out of that car, you're still you. And so I was me, and without my car, but I didn't know that. There were creatures kind of coming out of the dark. They kind of stared at me for a while, and then they wandered off. And then some big metallic thing, I could hear it going clank, 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 like like a walking tank went by, and I just saw the shadow, and I thought, oh, that's what happened. We've been, invaded by aliens, and they're blowing up the towns. And I thought, oh my gosh, I thought it was a war. This is even worse. So I thought, well, I've got to get out of this, piece behind this concrete. I've got to get in one of the buildings. Maybe there's other humans there, or food or water, or anyway. So I thought, I have got to make a run for it. So I took off running. It's dusk, it's dusty, it's, foggy and stuff. And I started up this piece of concrete, and I just about got to the top, and my fingers lost purchase. And all of a sudden I got my fingernails digging into this concrete, and I start falling backwards, and I think, oh gosh, this is going to hurt. And the lights went out, and then the lights came on, and now I'm someplace else. And there were, I don't know, Royce, probably 10 different segments throughout this seemingly endless time. Most of them were quite lengthy. And then between times, I would find myself like on this dirt road. It would just, again, the lights would come up, and there I'd be with just this moonscape kind of thing with just rocks and just this reddish glow at the horizon, like there was a fire coming up over it or something, but no stars and no moon and no clock. And I couldn't tell if it was day or night or how long I'd been there. And the road, to me at least, was a little safer. I could do a 360 and see if anything was creeping up on me, because things kept getting weirder and weirder. So there were episodes on the road, and then I would go back into one of these long ones. The first, well, there was so many of them. The first time I really thought, oh my gosh, I'm not in Kansas anymore, was when a light came up, and I'm kind of getting used to it, and I look, and there's like this demon is the only word you can come up with. It was like a Bigfoot, big, hairy, ugly thing. And when I'm looking, I'm like looking at the belly button, and I'm looking up and up and up, and I'm thinking, holy cow, what's that? And he says, you want to get out of here? And I thought, wow, that was perfect English. I was expecting some sort of a growl or something. And I just said, yeah. And he says, well, I can get you out. I just got one thing I need you to do. And I thought, oh, this is all so weird. Sure. What is it? And he says, well, and then he goes whoosh with his hand, and it had been all dark behind him. Now, as far as I can see, is all these blackberry vines, and they're huge. I mean, 20 feet high. They're all just thick as you can see, all the way, with the thorns and all. And I'm looking at that, and he says, I just need you to cut those all down for me. And I thought, what? And then he hands me these little scissors they give the kids in kindergarten to cut papers. And he starts to belly laugh. And now that I didn't think that was funny. I'm not in a real good humor here. And I just looked at him like, you're out of your mind. And he says, do you want out or not? I thought, okay. Yeah, I'm a stubborn person. I'm a survivor. I don't like being told what to do. And I was me. And I said, fine, so I get down and I'm gnawing on this one, the canes, they're big, and I'm gnawing on it. And I'm muttering under my breath, cursing this thing. And he's laughing. He's thinking this is really funny. So I finally got one of them cut away. So I'm angry, and I go to put the thing behind me so I could get the next one. And when I turned back around, it grew all the way back. Oh, God. So now he's really having a good time. And I just looked at him and I thought, you're not going to beat me. I'm getting out of here. I mean it. So I start to cut again, and the black, nothing. And then it comes up again. And I'm thinking, oh, great. Now what? So I'm in this hospital-like environment. All the walls are white. The floor is white, but it's dingy. And there's doors on either side of me, but they're closed. And I'm thinking, doors is good, and I start to go to the one on the right, and something catches my eye, and I look up, and at the end of this long corridor is another one of these jokers, the big demon guys. And this one's got like a truncheon where they use in prisons where they hit people, and he's coming at me full bore down this hall, and I'm panicking, and I didn't know which room to get into, and boom, he's right in front of me. So I stood at attention. I thought, now what? And he said, okay, I got a job for you. And I thought, what? And he says, look, it gets worse. It gets worse.
Wow.
So and I thought, if he was intimating that if I don't do this job, whatever. And so I thought, well, what is it? So he says, okay. And he kind of opens the doors, and he says, I want you to go in there. I want you to take what they give you. I want you to walk across the hall, and I'll be waiting for you. You go in that room, and you put down what they've given you, and you go back. This is your job. You're just going to go back and forth. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound so hard, and maybe if there's 2 doors here, there's probably another door somewhere else. So maybe if I can get in there, maybe there'll be another human or something, or I can sneak out, because I was not going to stay there. I had to get out. I didn't know where I was, but so I go into this room, and I'm looking, and it looks like a hospital. Yeah, it's got gurneys, lots of gurneys, and there's people, I guess, on there. They're covered with sheets, and down in front of each of them is like a stool, and there's a doctor, I guess, sitting there, and they're doing something. Well, I'm looking, the legs are splayed, and I'm thinking, well, maybe they're doing, I don't know, kind of gynecologist stuff. It looks like them. So one of these doctors raises his hand, and I'm looking in, he turns around and yells, get over here. So I go over, and he says, stick out your arms. So I did. And he took which was probably an aborted baby, and put it in my hands and says, get going. Well, I worked for Birthright when I was on the planet, and this was not a good thing. So I was horrified, and I went out in the hall and looked at this demon, and he says, in the other room. So I'm in shock, and I walk over, and I walk in this room, Royce, and It was like a big Costco, empty Costco, except the only thing in it was these piles and piles and piles of these little aborted babies.
Oh.
And I just put it down, and I went in the hall and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he raises the club and he says, I'm telling you, it's going to get worse. And I said, no. Okay. The lights go up and the lights come up. So this went on, and the road, like I say, when the road would come up, I'd be able to catch my breath and think, well, roads lead somewhere. If I didn't know there was no signs, I didn't know to go to left or right. So like a driver, I went to the right, and I had a very weird, well, I had several experiences there, but one that was really weird and is part of a study now is people that have distressing NDEs and see living people, people that are alive on Earth. There's not very many of us, but there's a lady that's doing a study on that. So I did see a person sitting on the right in a chair, dressed kind of in Eastern Indian clothing. Didn't say anything to me. He didn't look friendly. So I thought, what the heck? And then I smelled something really, really good. And I thought, oh boy, that's refreshing. Sounded like food. Smelled like food. And I was so hungry and I was thirsty. You don't know you're dead. And so I'm walking, and here's to the right of me, this beautiful buffet tables just piled high with this gorgeous, yummy food. And I look at the person that's scurrying around fixing all that stuff. It was one of my family members, and she was alive. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's one of my favorites. And I said her name, and she looked up at me, and she didn't recognize me. And I says, who I was. I said, I don't know how I got here. I don't know what you're doing here. You're cooking, obviously. And if it's not too much trouble, if you could just give me a plate of just a little something and maybe a glass of water, I'll move on my way. And she just looked at me in disgust and said, this is for the important people.
Oh, God. Wow.
Zing. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. So I kept walking, and I thought, how can this get any weirder? This is just too bad. Well, I'm going to shorten it up a little bit and tell you that coming up down this road, I thought I was, fairly safe. But up above, down the road, I see this group of people kind of milling back and forth across the road. And I thought, that's not good. I don't think I can get by them without them seeing me. They look strange. They're like muttering to themselves and dragging their feet and walking awkwardly. They've got these rags on for clothes. It's so dark there. It's just kind of a dusk. And I thought, there's something wrong with those people, but I'm going to have to pretend like I'm one of them. That was the best I could come up with. I'll just kind of slow down. I'll look at the ground, and I'll just kind of mutter and stagger through this group. There's probably 20 of them. It looked like some might be women. They had like things covering their head. And so I thought, I've got to do this. I can't go back that way. So I started through, and at first it was fine. I got about halfway through, and then they all froze. So I stopped, and I thought, oh, shoot, I think they spotted me. And then they started backing up. So I was left in a circle in the middle, and the women stayed where they were, and the men started towards me. And I thought, oh, no, this is not going to be good. And it was not good. One guy pushed me in the chest, another one kicked me, and down I went. And then, it was your typical unfortunate happening when you've got one woman and 6 or 7 crazy guys. And it was terrible. And I'm screaming, and there's nobody to help me. And finally they back up, and I could see that they were almost leprous, and like their skin was all moldy. And this one guy got right in my face and said, we've all got AIDS, and now you've got it, and you can't die. you're just going to rot like
Oh,
we did. And then they just left. And I just sitting there trying to pull my clothes back up. And this demon lady came and says, get up. You're one of us. Come along. And so I stood up and I thought, well, at least they backed off when she showed up. And she led me to this group of other ladies that looked like me. And we had been in this dark place. And so she says, come on, get in single file. We're going. And so we followed her. And as we came out of the darkness, it all of a sudden became light. But it was because we were on this like tundra. And it was snowing like crazy. And it was about up to our ankles at that time. But cold as hell is a real thing. And so we're marching I can't tell you how long because you don't, there's no time. But I know that we started off at ankle length snow. And by the time we got where we were going, it was up to chest high. And the only way you could get through it with holding onto your rags is to follow her. And I kind of did an out of body thing where I looked down and I could see us in the trail, how long the trail had been in the snow was, where we were walking. And I thought, at some point you start to get kind of tired. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this one, And so eventually there's this terrible rundown shack looking thing. She says, okay, we're here. And she opens the door and ushers us in. Of course, the windows are broken out and the snow's blowing in and we're huddled on, no furniture. We're sitting on the floor, all huddled together. It's so damn cold. And she says, okay, now we wait for customers. And we looked at each other like, I thought this couldn't get any worse. And then I thought, I'm mad. I'm really mad. This is not right. I shouldn't be. This is stupid. I don't like it. I said, look, to her, and she turns around like, what? And I said, I've been here a very long time. This is a new low. Is there something going on that I don't know about? And she says, well, it's Christmas on earth. That's always the worst day in hell. And I thought, hell? Oh my gosh, I guess I'm not getting out. This is just awful. And I thought, well, I'm not done yet. I said, well, I knew what would really get her. So I started singing a Christmas carol just to make her mad. And I started with, Away in a Manger, my favorite. And she had walked away. She had a big stick too. She had her back to me. And I'm going, away in a manger. She turns around and says, shut up. And I goes, no crib for his bed. Now the other ladies are singing, and she's yelling, I mean it. And I says, the little Lord. And she shrieked and jumped at me. And I shut my eyes again. And I thought, well, here we go. At least I'll go someplace else. And boom, everything changes. It's bright light, but it's beautiful bright light. It's like swirling sparklers or something. And I'm just tumbling in this love and joy, and everything else is gone. There's nothing to do but just be enveloped in this wonderful, wonderful light and love. And
wow.
You just think, I want to stay just like this forever. And it just seemed like I was just floating and just loving every second of it. And then it was like, all of a sudden it seemed to kind of coalesce or start to solidify a little bit. And I'm feeling like I'm standing and all this white is turning into like marble, white, beautiful marble, not quite like being inside a cathedral, but kind of like that, just gorgeous. And out of the corner of my eye, I had seen this table with this big book on it, and it was open about halfway. And I thought, well, that's odd. And then I looked up and, oh my gosh, there's my friend that just died the month before of leukemia. And the last time I'd seen him, he had no hair. His face was all blotchy and awful. And he looked great. And instead of 53, he looks like he's 35. Instead of gray hair, he's got the brown, and he's hopping from one foot to the other. He's so happy to see me. And I'm so excited. And then I thought, oh, he doesn't know he's dead. And he broke out into a big belly laugh. And I thought, no, I didn't say that out loud. How did he? oh my gosh, if he's dead, I must be dead. And it's like the best news ever. I was so excited. I'd forgotten everything that had happened. I said, why are we standing here? Show me stuff. Where's all the angels and the rainbows and stuff? And then I thought, uh-oh. I remembered that book, and I looked over there and I thought he was showing me something in there. And I remember saying, oh no, that's going to be too hard. I want to stay here with you. And he came, oh, I still get so mad. He came up and he said, now, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. I thought, they're throwing me out? I said, no. Boom, back I go.
Wow.
There was a little timeout period where I had to walk by this stream, and I guess they thought, we can't send her back like this. That's just not good. So anyway, I wake up and it's the light's too bright, and there's people milling around, and I thought, oh crap, I'm back in hell. And then this person turns around and says, Mom's back. And I thought, what? And they're all, my mom and dad and my daughter, and they're all milling around the room, and I can't move. What's wrong? I can't move. And I'm hot and I can't talk. And they're, she's saying, oh, Mom, you've been in a coma for 3 weeks and we thought you were dead. And my mom's saying, oh, we had this prayer circle going around the planet and we brought you back. And I thought, I'll kill you with my bare hands. What do you mean you brought me back? It's all your fault. So, all this is going on in my head because I've dwindled down to 86 pounds. I've lost all my muscle mass. The next day, the doctor came in to see what I could use, and I could blink and move one finger. That was it.
Kathy, I hate to interrupt you, but we need to take a really quick break, and you will continue when we get back.
I'll be here.
Yes, thank you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Om Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. I hated to interrupt you there, Kathy.
That's right. Gave me a chance to breathe.
Yeah. So come back. You're pissed off. Tell us a little bit about that. And I really want to have you get into why you think all of this happened, because it's so important. But finish your story first.
Well, it took me a month in the rehab facility to, well, of this hospital to be able to get me to another rehab facility where I was for another month, and about a year to get my life back on track. I was haunted, by this whole experience. There was nobody that I could talk to about it. Nobody wanted to hear about it. My therapist said, I can put PTSD on your chart, honey, but I don't know how to help you. So through a series of synchronicities over the next 10 years, Royce, 10 years, I finally found myself being led to IANDS, International Association of Near-Death Studies, meeting up in Seattle. That's where they were formed 41 years ago, and got to listen to a couple of speakers, Eben Alexander, and people tell their stories. And finally, none of them, they were all, puppies and rainbows. And I was sneaking out of one of the meetings, and one of the people that ran it says, why do you always look so sad when you're here? And I said, well, because, I didn't have that kind of experience. And he says, oh, did you have a distressing one? And I said, yeah. And he says, great. And I said, what? And he says, oh, they happen, 10, 20% of the time, and nobody will tell us about them. You need to tell your story. And I said, no. And he says, well, yeah, you will, because we need to learn this. So fast forward now, another 15 years, I've been in IANDS. And I found that, the people, they usually turn them over to me if I'm at a meeting. They say, go to she's the hell lady. Go talk to her. It's a lovely moniker. And so, but I got together with some other people in the organization and started a distressing NDE sharing group every month through IANDS. They have all kinds of sharing groups. It's IANDS.org. If you at all interested in your death, they've got sharing groups up kazang. You're welcome to join any of them. But people are coming out of the woodwork. So I've got, 10, 20 people at a meeting, and a lot of them have never told their story ever. And so to be able to unload that in a non-judgmental environment with people who totally get it is very life-affirming and life-changing for these people. So it's a very positive thing, because the research has, and I say that because IANDS has gotten into this, and there's a lady that is at the forefront of that. Her name is Nancy Evans Bush, and she's written 3 wonderful books about her distressing experience, and she's a PhD, very smart lady, and she came up with some possibilities for what this is all about. And it just saved my life reading that book, to think, no, bad distressing NDEs don't happen to bad people and good ones to good people. That's just not the way it rolls. They've done too many studies, and that's just not the way it rolls. So what we've been discovering over the years is that I always hate to say this, in my study alone, over 85% of the people have distressing NDEs are recovering Catholics. And there seems to be a reason for that. I mean, I know we're known for our guilt. Catholics are known for their guilt. And we're taught from a very young age that there's purgatory. There's hell and there's purgatory. Purgatory is hell, except you get out. And even though Jesus died for your sins and all that, there's still going to be residual, and you have to pay. So our understanding, to put it in a nutshell, is that I expected to go to purgatory or hell when I died. And so since there is none, because God is all loving and all forgiving, period, I made one. And I took terrible things that happened in my life, and I was able over the years to go back and find those incidents in my life that triggered those experiences. I was in an earthquake in Santa Cruz in '89. The buildings fell down. There was fires. There were people running back and forth, and I was in my office, and fearing for my life. So I made a hell with that one.
Wow.
And all the rest of them, I could. So I would share that in sharing groups, and people would come back months later and say, you know what? I had segments too. And I was able to do the same thing. So it's unfolding that the belief is, There is no hell. You can make one if you want one. But I believe, and it seems to be going that direction, that if you go and experience that and you come back, if you go and stay, you don't have that experience. So I feel like I'm kind of an envoy, somebody that's going to come back and say, skip the trip. You don't need to go there. God does not send you there. For all the millions of people that have had near-death experiences, Royce, I have heard nobody that said they were judged. Nobody said that God put them here or there. They say they have a life review, and it's very interesting. You get to see your entire life, like a movie, and you're usually got an angel or a guide or somebody hanging with you. And it's just a matter of you seeing how you lived your life, and then they turn it around and you get to feel what it was like to interact with you. So if I was interacting with you and I was calling you bad names, I would feel your horror and hurt. So, but if I'm a kind person, I help old lady across the street or whatever, I will feel her gratitude. So it's just a matter of not quite karma, but you understand how your life affected other people. And also hanging out with all these people for the last 15 years, I believe that we start off in heaven. We're all souls. We're all part of God. I think God is experiencing God's self by bringing us down here and turning us loose. And I think we come down here to learn things. I think we come down with our soulmates, and that we arrange to, like you and I, meet up for an hour or two with some of them, and some of them we're married to, or they're our kids or our best friends or whatever. And we help each other. And there's no right or wrong living down here, really. It's just all experience, and you get to experience any pain you have caused people. People always say, well, what about Hitler? You mean he's not in hell? Well, if he's experiencing all the pain and horror and ugliness that he put out in the world, he's probably about halfway through his life review about now. What else can you do to the guy? It's self-inflicted. So yeah, I really believe that God is love, and we are love, and we're here to just experience. I hear from several people that there's many, look at all, like billions of galaxies and planets out there. There's many other places you can reincarnate if you want to go back. They say that Earth is the toughest gig. This is the darkest, hardest place. It's for the brave souls. Yes. So consider yourself brave. And I don't intend to come back here again. I don't know about the rest of you people, but I'd like to go to a little lighter space next time. But it takes away the thought that God did this to me. God killed my baby, because I chose that experience. She chose that experience. She says, okay, I'm a soulmate. I'll go down with you for 9 months and 2 days, and I am out of there. And, I agreed to that because I think the things that, quote, are bad that happen to us here give us empathy. And I think that's one of the most marvelous gifts we are given. If we suffer, we have empathy for other people who are suffering the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it's all good. Yes. I hope that's helpful. So there's nothing to fear with death. No. Most of us can't wait to get back. Yeah.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
So what about those people that question you? I've had people that are, quote, experts on near-death experiences, and when I tell them even just a little bit about what you've shared, they say, "Oh, no, that must have been drug-induced or hallucinations." Or
no, because they don't know. You this is something you have to experience. I mean, they're not informed. Yeah. Interesting. There's a lot of other things that I can give you a quote from Nancy Evans Bush, if I might. She's, like I say, she's really studied this. I love this. She says, hell lives inside us.
Yes.
Burning is the fires and torments of our shadow selves.
Yes.
That is what we meet in a distressing NDE. We
Yeah.
have to be brave enough to confront our own shadow, our demons, our darkness, and move through it. It is not a punishment. It is an invitation to growth and wholeness.
Yes. Exactly. And that's what I teach in my courses. And we can do that right here. We don't have to be out of our bodies to do that.
Yeah. Skip the trip. Do it here.
It's so hard for people to face that. You know, we hold on to it and we suppress it and we deny it and we forget it, you know, but I talk about how we attract it as mirrors to wake us up, you know,
Yeah.
so we don't have to go through a distressing NDE.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if you go over and stay, you won't have that experience. I think, again, it's something I chose or I volunteered for. And then this is my mission, is to tell people. When I got back, I said, I don't want any more thou shalt nots. Give me something positive. And I was told to be loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non-judgmental, and useful. And they said, Kathy, if you can't remember all that, which I do because it's emblazoned on my soul, just be loving and kind. Every morning you get in the mirror, look at yourself. Okay, today I'm going to be loving and kind. And Royce, it's so interesting when you really concentrate on that. No matter who you're talking to or what group you're in, it starts to soften. It starts to penetrate it. It catches fire, and people, they become a little more kind because you've been kind to them. They're being a little more merciful. They're being more helpful and useful. And you can actually see that happen. So if we all just took the time to really once or twice a day, if nothing else, go out of your way, be a little kind, and it blossoms.
It does. And so you were told, I'm assuming you were told or instructed, tell people about it, write some books, tell us.
Yeah, over the years, I kept hearing, you've got to write a book, you've got to write a book. And then the people at the IONS thing says, you have got to write a book. And then I was at a conference at IONS, and this lady was starting her publishing company, and she was people that talk to the dead. I can't remember the word right now, but medium. Yeah. And she came out and she stepped in front of me. She scared me. She says, they say you need to write your book. And I thought, who's this they? It was just you and me standing here. And she says, yeah, and I'm going to help you. So she gave me her card and she published my book. She hounded me till I wrote it and helped it get published. And I thank her. And she died about a month ago of breast cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's in heaven now. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you got to listen to those messages for sure. So
they'll pound you if you don't.
Yeah.
Another thing I was thinking about, as far as religion, people ask me a lot about that. And, anything that brings you closer to God is good, as long as it's not taught with fear, because we cannot love what we fear. And if we're taught to fear God, not good.
Yeah. And a lot of religions, that's their message,
Is to control people, it's too bad. So, but God's all loving, all forgiving. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. So show us your books. And
show us your book.
There it is. Didn't you write a second?
Misfit in Hell. That's because I kept bucking everything they told me to do. And Heaven Expat is because I believe we all start off in heaven. We come down to earth and do our work. And then we go back. So we're expatriates of heaven.
Yeah. Didn't you write a second book, or is it still in process?
No, it's a memoir. And I only had one life so far that I remember. And I've been told probably it would be a good idea, but it's been 25 years since I've had the experience. The book's been out for 5. And I get things rolling around in my head. So that may happen. But I'll be, like I say, 79 next month. And I don't know. This takes up a lot of my life, but I love it. The podcast, couldn't do it without the podcast. You are doing such a wonderful job helping so many people that you'll never even see. It's just awesome. Thank you, Royce, for what you do.
Well, The feeling is mutual, definitely. You keep up your good work, and I'll start hounding you to write that second book.
Oh, great. Thanks. Maybe I'll see you again sometime, eh?
Yes, yes. Tell us how people can reach you or reach on.
Everything's linked to the title of my book, my website, and Misfit and Hell to Heaven Expat. Books on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, wherever you get books. And it's doing really well. And I've got over 2.5 million views on a combination of almost 170 podcasts. So I'm very grateful. It couldn't happen without the podcasters.
Wow. Thank you so much. Your story, every time I hear your story, I hear more details and it's more interesting.
Yeah, there's more in the book. I can't get it all out in an hour. Yeah, but it's an uplifting book. I've got a sense of humor, and it's the trip through hell is only a small part of it.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And follow me on my Substack. It's called Royce's Ramblings. And if you're interested in what I do, RoyceMorales.com. And I will see you all next week. And again, thank you, Kathy.
Bye-bye.